Let's say you're all in on one social media platform. You have one platform where you have a substantially higher amount of followers than on any other platform. What would happen if that platform vanished tomorrow? How would that affect you? How would that affect your business? Would you be able to survive? Or would your business and livelihood just come crashing to the ground? This is why it is so important to diversify. Hi guys, my name is Ethan Bridge. I am host of the Social Media Marketing School podcast and the guy behind the Instagram page at The Marketing Ethan. Today, I'm going to be talking about the importance of owning your traffic and diversifying your audience across multiple different platforms. Let's say you're currently all in on Instagram. You have 10,000 followers, you have an extremely engaged audience. This is where you get all of your revenue from, but you have no audience elsewhere. You haven't got an email list, you haven't diversified on YouTube, you haven't possibly made a podcast, you name it. Essentially, you are all in on one platform. What happens if Instagram got shut down tomorrow? How would you react? How would you survive? Would you be able to survive? Would your followers be able to find you elsewhere? Or would they just be lost forever? These are questions you need to be asking yourself and should highlight the fact as to why it's so important to diversify and begin to own your traffic. We essentially rent a space on all social media platforms. Instagram, for example, we could lose our page tomorrow if the company went bust. Don't think it's going to happen? Look what happened to Vine. Perfect example. You had the intelligent creators who had already diversified onto other platforms. Logan Paul, for example, David Dobrik, they were able to diversify onto YouTube and seek success elsewhere, despite the fact Vine shut down forever and they lost their millions of followers on that platform. But there were also creators that didn't do that. They didn't diversify, and therefore, we don't even know who they are anymore. But the ones who were clever enough to diversify at the time are now multi-millionaires, and they're thriving and diversifying even though they have pretty much reached that peak level of success. When it comes to traffic, there are three different types. There's traffic you control, traffic you don't control, and then traffic that you own. So I'm going to sort of go into these in a little bit more detail so you understand them a bit more. So, traffic you control is traffic that you pay for. Something that you're directly paying for, so you know people are coming to your business and seeking your services because you have paid for that traffic to do just that. So this can be paid ads, influencer shoutouts, YouTube ads, email ads, banner ads, any form of advertisement that you pay for that is bringing you an audience because of that. That is traffic you control. Next, you have traffic you don't control. And this is traffic as a byproduct of your actions. So this is a perfect example of pretty much any social media platform. Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, Pinterest. All of the traffic coming to you and your business from these platforms are a byproduct of the actions you are putting onto it. You are creating content for Instagram. Therefore, people are seeing your content. They are seeing you. They are seeing your business. That traffic coming to you is a byproduct of the content you are creating for the platform. So although you are seeking out that audience and that traffic, it is a direct byproduct of the fact you are creating content for that platform. So then finally, you have traffic you own. So you know I mentioned that essentially on social media, we rent a space. That social media platform could be stripped from us tomorrow and we'd have nothing that we can do about it. All our followers, all our audience, gone. And that's just tough luck. And that could happen. But that's why it's essential that you have traffic that you own. Because that is traffic you have complete control over. It can never be taken away from you. So for example, an email list. Email list, as soon as you've got an email, unless a person changes their email address, you have that email forever. Nobody can take that away from you. It's in your database, you've got it, it's yours. Website visitors. That website is your own website. You've paid for it, you continue to pay for it. Unless you stop paying for it, you are always going to own your website. So you own the traffic coming to your website. Phone numbers. Again, it's unlikely that people change their phone numbers, so as soon as you have somebody's phone number, you can safely assume that it's going to be the same forever, and therefore you own that piece of traffic. My podcast is another perfect example. It's my podcast. I own the RSS feed, I own the episodes, I create them, and there's always going to be a different podcast provider that I can go to should one disappear. Apple may stop producing podcasts. I go to Google, I go to Spotify, I go to another streaming service. I'm always going to have this podcast, and because I'm on all of them, people can transfer between one. If Apple goes, they can listen on SoundCloud. If SoundCloud goes, they can listen on Spotify, you name it. Because I own the RSS feed, I own the podcast, and therefore I own the listeners of that podcast. It's my traffic, cannot be taken away from me. Nobody can take my podcast tomorrow. Simple as that. So every single listener I have on this podcast, I have complete control over. So they are the three different types of traffic. Traffic you control, traffic you don't control, and traffic you own. So now you know these different types of traffic. So I'm now going to go into the importance of diversification and also the importance of beginning to own your traffic and give you some tips and tricks on how you can do just that. So firstly, we are going to talk about diversifying your audience and diversifying yourself across different platforms. Now, if you are pretty clever with the way you create content, this is quite an easy thing for you to do because you can just repurpose your content for different platforms. What I do, for example, I record my podcast here as a video podcast. I can strip the audio, there you have it, there's a podcast episode. I can put the video version up on YouTube, there you go, building an audience on YouTube. I can also strip down and cut up the individual bits of the podcast, have those as separate pieces of content for my Instagram page, my LinkedIn, my Twitter, my Facebook, you name it. By repurposing my content, I'm able to put myself on all the different social media platforms. And I can tell people about this. I can tell my Instagram followers, you should follow me on YouTube. You should listen to my podcast. Have you joined my Facebook group? I don't have a Facebook group, but one day I will. I'm going to diversify even more going into that avenue. That way, if one platform disappears tomorrow, you have those backup platforms that people can still find you on. And if they already follow you on these platforms, they will still just continue to watch your content there, opposed to watching it on the platform that just disappeared. Now, it's also good in a way to always have your foot in all of the platforms because we never know which platform is going to be the next big thing. TikTok is a perfect example. There was a time when it was just seen as an app that there were just kids dancing on to songs in the charts. That's all the platform was to begin with. And people were thinking, is this really going to take off? Can I be using this? But if you listen to Gary Vee, he was like, get on it. Doesn't matter what these kids are doing. You can help diversify the platform, age up the content, and get that content to a wider variety of people because you're posting something different. And now look what's happened. TikTok is phenomenally huge. It's massive. Everyone goes on TikTok, and it's this platform that people have been able to become an overnight success on. There's no such thing as a get-rich-quick scheme, but it seems half of the creators on there have become famous just like that. And it's ridiculous. You could post one piece of content with 0 followers, wake up, and that video have 1 million views. And this is because so early on, you don't have that saturation and you don't have that competition, and therefore it's much more likely for you to go viral. But if you are having your foot in all of these different social media platforms, you can make sure that you have that best opportunity when the barrier to entry is low and there isn't much competition. So if you were on TikTok and just had 5% of your time spent on that platform, you would have been able to ride the wave, hopefully gain a few followers there, so that when the content did become more popular, and the fact that TikTok is now one of the most popular, if not the most popular social media platform at the moment, you were there. You had already built a following because you had your foot in there in the beginning. So the fact that you are putting your foot in all the platforms makes sure that you are future-proof. It makes sure that you are there just in case that is the next big platform. But it's important to obviously go 75 to 80% of the time on the platform that is working best for you at the moment. For me, for example, it's Instagram. I'm putting most of my time into Instagram because that is where I'm seeing the greatest success. But I've also got my foot in podcasting. I've also got my foot in YouTube. I've also got my foot in LinkedIn. I've also got my foot pretty much in most of the social media platforms, because I know that Instagram can be taken away from me tomorrow and there'd be nothing I could do about it. But the fact I am building the audiences elsewhere covers for that situation, and if it does happen, my audience can find me elsewhere. So that is why you need to diversify. That is why you need to have your foot in all the different social media platforms. Cover your bases, make sure you are future-proof, and prepare for the worst. It may never happen. Instagram or your favorite social media platform may stay around forever, and brilliant. That's obviously the best case scenario. But look what happened to Vine, and you can't say, oh, that's never going to happen, because Vine is a perfect example of when it did happen, and so many creators suffered as a result. So make sure you are diversifying and cover all of the bases. So now we understand the importance of diversification. Let's talk about a few ways that you can actually begin to own your traffic. And to begin to own your traffic, you can leverage these social media platforms and the traffic you don't really control. So those social media platforms, the traffic that's coming from a byproduct of the content you create. Because traffic you own is another form of diversification. If you are getting an email list, yes, you aren't growing on social, but you are capturing information of your current audience and diversifying in that way. Email list. Let's say Instagram gets deleted tomorrow. Let's continue to use this as an example. If you have captured the email list of most of your followers, the day it gets deleted, type up an email. You can find me on these platforms. And there they go. They're going to go and find you on all of those platforms. So if you've managed to build up your email list, you can do just that. Now you might be thinking, okay, sounds brilliant, but how do I get emails? You need to have just a compelling lead magnet, something free. If you are a content creator, free templates, a free ebook, you name it, something along those lines. Something that people can get for free that you can grab an email for. If it's free, there's nothing really for them to lose. All they've got to do is type in their email and you send them the product. So just try it. And trust me, you will be able to capture a lot of emails. Build that email list, begin to own traffic that way. Another one, like I mentioned, have a website. It's such a simple one. It's just a home for you and your content. If you've got a podcast, if you've got a blog, create a website that embeds that podcast or blog into it, where people can also come on, they can find your content, they can find your other social platforms, they can find your resources, you name it. It's just a home for you that people can refer to. And if people know that you have a website, they're always going to remember it's there. Now, I am just using this as an example because I don't actually have my own website at the moment. That is in the works. There will be one eventually, but I know it's a thing I need to do, and that's also why I'm telling you to do it. When people know about my website, they will find it. They will remember it. Some will bookmark it. Some will continue to visit it to consume my content that way, regardless of whether social media platforms still exist. They may just find that the best way to consume my content. So I am aware that that is a fantastic way of beginning to own your traffic. So that is why in the future, that is something I'm definitely going to introduce, because I want to get this as soon as possible, before anything bad happens, or just in case something bad happens. So have a website, begin to own your traffic that way. And finally, more of a bias point, a podcast. A podcast is a brilliant thing to have. And there's so many other benefits of a podcast other than just owning your traffic. I get to speak to you guys. You get to know me on a more personal level. I get to repurpose content. This podcast has been the biggest content hack for me. From one episode, I get a podcast, I get a YouTube video. I also get about 15 pieces of content for my Instagram page. It's ridiculous. And that's just from having a podcast. And from the podcast as well, I also own my traffic, because this cannot be taken away from me. My podcast will not go tomorrow. It will only go tomorrow if I stop creating content for it and delete all the episodes. If I don't do that, it's always going to be there. So I'm going to continue to create and grow this podcast for as long as I possibly can. From this podcast, I can promote other things. I can promote my services. I get to choose exactly what I do on this podcast. So that it's just another fantastic way to begin to own your audience and diversify. And that rounds up everything I have to say on why you need to diversify your audience, how you should diversify your audience, and how to begin to own your traffic. And it wraps up today's video as well. So if you did enjoy today's video, as you can see, I am a very new creator here on YouTube and would really appreciate all the support possible. So if you did enjoy it, I'd really appreciate if you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and turned on the post notifications. That way you will never miss a video when I post every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But just so you are aware, this is actually a part of my Social Media Marketing School podcast series. See what I did there? I'm now diversifying, all back on today's video topic, but this is a part of my Social Media Marketing School podcast series, and the content actually releases on the audio version of the podcast a couple of days earlier. So if you want to consume this content a little bit sooner, make sure you are subscribing to the audio version of the podcast. Type in Social Media Marketing School. It's available on pretty much any podcast platform, Apple, Spotify, Google, you name it. I'll leave the links in the description so you can find it much easier, but make sure you are subscribing over there. But I just want to finish off by saying, if you have made it to this point in the video, thank you all for tuning in, and I hope to see you in the next one.